Good afternoon. My name is Tom. Many of you already know me as the manager of a real asset-based investment fund that centers around collectible whiskey, and I will continue on in that role. However, thanks to some friends of mine in D.C., I have, as of this morning, also been appointed the inaugural head of the Whiskey Assurance Agency, newly made, newly fashioned, which will from now on be overseeing all whiskey-related policy in the United States. And you may say to that, well, Tom, that sounds great, but this is a great deal of responsibility, and you don't have any history in public service. You've never run an organization larger than yourself and a secretary and a couple of unpaid interns, so are you really qualified for this kind of responsibility? And that's a very fair question, I believe. But and to reply, I think, well, first of all, most importantly, I'm rich. And secondly, it's also not a real agency. It turns out there's this whole process of approval and red tape. It's very complicated. And, you know, we figured we just want to get started. Better to ask forgiveness than permission, as they say. We're trying to save the American whiskey industry here, right? So we a bunch of oversight and stuff is just going to slow us down. So I'm here today to announce a couple of new policy initiatives. First of all, a couple of changes that are very common sense that really should have been implemented a long time ago in relation to whiskey production. Because whiskey producers really have to go through a lot of onerous regulation that is pretty easy to just cut away. There's this very strange idea that what is in the bottle should be reflected by everything that's on the label or in the advertising. And yeah, I mean, there should be some relation, but you're really stifling innovation and creativity, and you're ruining the competitiveness of American spirits when you really insist on that to such a legalistic degree. I mean, just to give you one example, age statements on whiskey still have this antiquated sense where you're not allowed to give the consumer what they really want to know, which is what is the age of the oldest component in a blend. You're just not allowed to state that on the label. That's not fair. That's not right. Did you know how uncompetitive the straight bourbon and straight other whiskeys are? For example, if you take a perfectly honest bourbon that you source from somewhere and then mix it around with a whole bunch of flavoring additives, also honestly come by, and then you bottle it, you're not allowed to sell that as a straight bourbon or a straight rye. You have to sell it as a finish, as a whiskey specialty. And that's not right. That's not, allowing American business to be creative and competitive. So what we were going to do in response to this was, the original plan was just to repeal the Bottled in Bond Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act and all the stuff that came around after Prohibition. But then it turns out that all that kind of like repealing laws thing that's also very complicated and takes a long time. So we're just making an end run around that. We're just going to fire everyone at the TTB. So by default, you submit a label, it gets approved. I'm going to send one of the interns over to start rubber stamping this stuff. However, I will add, if you want to expedite the process, sending a reasonable fee over to us here at the Whiskey Assurance Agency, that will help speed along the process. Let's see, what else are we doing? Oh, second policy. We're getting rid of the very antiquated 3-tier alcohol model that's been endemic to the U.S. So from now on, our good friends at Southern Glazed are just going to distribute everything. It's much simpler. It's much more efficient that way. Save a lot of costs. And lastly, lastly, the most important policy change we're probably making is the introduction of the Strategic Whiskey Reserve. Let me explain. You may have heard that there is a whiskey glut right now, an oversupply of whiskey which is pushing prices down and spooking a lot of investors, and that's bad. So what will we do? Well, we will take the money we've saved by firing everyone from the TTB and also some other strategic layoffs throughout the federal government. I mean, for example, did you know that we pay people to keep track of the power grid? Like, you just flip the light switch on and off. If it doesn't work, then power doesn't work. So, yeah, we're going to get rid of a couple other people, raise some money. We will take that money and we will invest it in buying up excess whiskey supply. We will not buy from retail, of course, because retail pricing doesn't really reflect true market price. No, we're going to pay secondary market prices, either to our friends at Southern or to flippers, basically whoever's giving us the biggest kickbacks. We will buy up all this whiskey. We will send it over to one of my warehouses for storage and safekeeping. And that will raise prices and stabilize the whiskey market. Now, conversely, if prices start to spike, if they start to get really unreasonable, what we can do is buy up even more whiskey to raise prices even higher and, pad the earnings reports of our investor friends. So that is the Strategic Whiskey Reserve. And yeah, I'm very excited about all these initiatives. I really think this is going to improve the long-term outlook of American whiskey immeasurably and improve returns for those of you who've been interested in this industry. Unless you're interested in drinking this stuff, but frankly, I don't really care about you.